Julius Caesar is one of the most interesting figures in history. But what fascinates me about his story is the nature of its tragedy. Like, just imagine that a man who built one of history's greatest empires never knew peace, never felt safety, and died betrayed by the very people he called friends. So let's go back to where the misery began. Julius Caesar wasn't born into wealth or comfort. His family claimed noble roots. The Julians actually traced their bloodline to Venus herself, but by Caesar's time, that meant nothing. They were broke. His father died when he was 16, and before he could even figure out how to stand in Roman politics, his world got ripped apart by dictatorship. Sulla, Rome's brutal warlord, seized power and began purging anyone linked to his enemies. Unfortunately for young Caesar, his uncle was Sulla's sworn rival. That meant young Julius had a death sentence hanging over his head. Sulla demanded he divorce his wife, Cornelia, the daughter of a political enemy. Caesar actually refused, so Sulla stripped him off of his priesthood, his inheritance, and sent assassins after him. This is some shit you only see in anime. So Caesar fled Rome, broke and hunted. He hid in swamps, forests, and even bribed the man sent to kill him to let him go. Imagine how fucked up it is. A teenage noble running for his life through mud and blood because he refused to betray his wife. This is where Caesar's paranoia began. He learned that loyalty in Rome was practically a suicide. After years of wandering, Caesar decided to travel to Rhodes to study rhetoric so he can become the best speaker in Rome. But fate spat in his face because he got kidnapped by Cilician pirates. When they demanded 20 talents of silver for ransom, Caesar actually laughed at them and he said, "I'm worth at least 50. A talent, by the way, was an ancient unit of weight, about 26 kilograms of silver, give or take. Well, anyways, this man had the balls. I'll give him that. Like, the fact that you're cracking jokes while literally being the center of an extortion operation is crazy. So what Caesar did is that he made his local allies gather the ransom while he joked and threatened the pirates that he would come back and crucify them. They thought it was a joke, but it was not. Okay, so here's where everything is going to change for Caesar. Once he freed himself from captivity, Caesar gathered a small private navy, hunted down those pirates, captured them, and actually crucified every single one of them. I know it sounds too fictional, but that is exactly what happened. After that, Caesar clawed his way up Rome's political ladder. But Rome wasn't a place for honest men. It was a blood pit of favors, debts, and lies. To rise, he had to bribe everyone. And I mean everyone. He actually went broke buying elections, throwing games, and feeding mobs to win votes. Some shit I would have done too, not gonna lie. By his mid-30s, Caesar was one of the most in-depth men in Rome. Talking about taking shit to the extreme. The only reason he wasn't imprisoned was because of the loyalty of one man, Crassus, the richest Roman alive. But Crassus didn't help out of friendship or the kindness of his heart. He owned Caesar's soul. Caesar was forced into the dark world of Roman corruption, selling power, promising wars, and owing everyone something. When he finally became consul, Caesar realized Rome's Senate wasn't ruled by democracy. It was ruled by fear and money. The Senate in ancient Rome wasn't like what we think of today. It wasn't elected by the people. It was a council of old aristocrats, mostly patricians, the descendants of Rome's oldest families, kind of like the celestial dragons if you're an anime fan. Their job was to advise the republic, but in truth, they controlled it. They managed the treasury, foreign policies, laws, and armies. They were the real puppeteers of power. and they hated men like Caesar, a new blood who is very ambitious and too popular with the masses. To them, he was a threat to the old order. So here, Caesar formed the first triumvirate, from the Latin word triumvir, meaning the three men, an unholy alliance with Crassus and Pompey. Three men ruled Rome in the shadows. Caesar thought he was in control, but in truth, he was the weakest of the three. Crassus had the money, Pompey had the military. Caesar only had ambition and charm. He married off his daughter Julia to Pompey to keep the alliance strong. See, this is the dark reality of having power. This man had to give away his own blood to hold Rome together. Unfortunately, Julia died in childbirth, and with her, the alliance died too. Pompey turned cold, Crassus died in battle, and Caesar was left alone again, the same lonely boy who ran from assassins years ago. When the Senate tried to strip Caesar of power, he faced an impossible choice: obey and be destroyed, or march on Rome and damn himself forever. And he chose the latter. Caesar crossed the Rubicon River, an act of treason punishable by death, and he said, "Alea iacta est." That is Latin for "the die is cast," which meant that a point of no return has been reached. You gotta understand that he invaded his own country. Brother fought brother. Roman killed Roman. Caesar defeated Pompey, his former friend, who fled to Egypt and was murdered before Caesar even arrived. They brought Caesar Pompey's head as a gift. Imagine that. He cried when he saw it. That's what power cost him. Every friendship, every ounce of his humanity. Now the undisputed ruler of Rome, Caesar had it all: money, power, and fame. But he was cursed by his own success. He couldn't trust anyone. Senators smiled at him while plotting his death, his health declined, epileptic fits, sleepless nights, headaches, you name it. People whispered he wanted to be king, while he said he did not. His enemies called him arrogant, and his friends called him God. He actually became a god in Rome, but a ghost inside himself. On March 15, Caesar entered the Senate. He was 55, and the fortune teller had warned him beforehand: beware the Ides of March. Ides come from the Latin word Ides, which was how Romans marked the middle of the month, in this case, the 15th of March. That warning meant one thing: death is coming. And it's dead. His own friends, Brutus, Cassius, and over 20 senators surrounded him. The man he had forgiven, promoted, and trusted stabbed him 23 times. The man who fought pirates and toppled Rome's republic died begging for mercy from men who pretended to love him. He fought at first until he saw Brutus. Now, for context, Marcus Junius Brutus wasn't just another senator. He was like family to Caesar. His mother, Servilia, was one of Caesar's former lovers. So when Caesar saw him holding a dagger, he stopped resisting. And as he died, he whispered, "Et tu, Brute." That is Latin for "you too, Brutus?" The words of a man realizing that everyone he ever loved had turned against him. Caesar was declared a god after death, worshipped by the same people who let him die. Within a year, his killers were hunted down and executed. His adopted son, Octavian, became Augustus, which means the Exalted One, Rome's first emperor. Caesar's death marked the end of the Roman Republic, and in my opinion, his whole life had been nothing but a trap. Every victory led him closer to his demise. Like, when you think about it, Julius Caesar really didn't live a glorious life. He lived a slow, bleeding tragedy. Yes, he built an empire, but he lost his soul along the way.